Welcome to the Negotiation Signals Atlas. Today, we're decoding one of the most powerful and, frankly, misunderstood forces in any negotiation, the anchoring effect. Think of it as a hidden gravity that shapes the entire deal before the real conversation even gets started.
So, let's just dive right in with the central puzzle we're tackling. Why is it that the very first number mentioned in a negotiation, whether it's a price, a salary, a valuation, why does it act less like suggestion and more like a law of physics, bending the entire deal around itself?
Here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the signal itself. Then we'll trace its pattern across different fields, understand the game being played, and calculate the cost of ignoring it. After that, we'll reveal the edge elite negotiators use, and we'll wrap up with some critical questions for you to apply to your own deals.
All right, first up, the signal. The core idea here is simple but profound. The first number spoken doesn't just inform the discussion. No, it creates a psychological gravity well that pulls every single number that comes after it right into its orbit.
Here's the critical disconnect. We all like to think that we're irrational, that we evaluate offers based on logic and fair value. But the cognitive reality, well, it's a lot messier. Our judgment is immediately and subconsciously bent by the very first reference point we hear. It's not an input for our logic, it's a distortion field around our logic.
This quote just nails it. A negotiation doesn't truly begin with arguments or with discussion. It begins the second that first number is on the table. That number, it sets the whole psychological landscape. It defines north before anyone's even had a chance to look at a map. Okay, so this isn't just some clever business tactic. This signal shows up as a consistent pattern across totally different, high-stakes environments. This force is universal. So get this, take the courtroom. Studies have shown that even seasoned judges are susceptible. When a prosecutor throws out a high, even arbitrary number for a sentence, the final sentence ends up being consistently harsher. The anchor works even on experts who are literally trained in objectivity.
And we see the exact same pattern in corporate mergers and acquisitions. An opening valuation, even one that's kind of pulled out of thin air with no real basis in financials, becomes the tether for the entire negotiation. All the debate that follows is just an adjustment from that first figure, not from an objective baseline.
And let's bring it closer to home, a scenario many of us have been in, the salary negotiation. That first number that gets mentioned, it doesn't just start the conversation. It dictates the entire plausible range. It sets the boundaries for what feels reasonable or ambitious, and it does this for both sides, constraining everyone's thinking before a single counteroffer is even on the table.
So we've seen the signal, and we've seen the pattern. Now let's get into the game itself. Why does this actually work? Well, it's because anchoring isn't about persuasion. It's a cognitive hijack. It targets our fast, intuitive thinking way before our logical mind has a chance to even boot up. Here's how it goes down in your brain. An initial number enters the environment. Instantly, your intuitive brain, your System 1, latches onto it. It doesn't evaluate it, it just accepts it as a starting point. Only after that does your logical brain, System 2, kick in. But here's the thing, its job is no longer to figure out the true value. Its job is now to adjust away from that anchor. And those adjustments, they're almost always too small.
And this is absolutely the most crucial part to understand. You can consciously reject an anchor. You can laugh at it, call it outrageous. It doesn't matter. The number is now in your head, and your brain has already started the process of adjusting from it. So even a rejected anchor is still influencing the range of what you think is possible. So that brings us to the cost. If you don't see this game being played, you're not just negotiating anymore. You're negotiating inside a cage that the other party built. And the worst part is, you can't even see the bars. Just take a look at this chart. On the left, you've got the objective zone of possible agreement, the ZOPA. That's the legitimate range for a deal. But look what happens after a high anchor is dropped. The entire perceived ZOPA shifts upwards. The very definition of a fair outcome has been manipulated. Value is literally being squeezed from one side purely through psychological framing.
And here's the real takeaway on the cost. When you lose value because of an anchor, it's not because your arguments weren't good enough. It's because you didn't see the true structure of the negotiation. You were busy playing checkers on a chessboard.
Which brings us to the edge. How do the elite negotiators handle this? Well, they operate differently. They don't waste energy trying to fight the physics of anchoring. They focus on becoming the ones who control the gravity in the first place.
This table really draws a sharp line in the sand.
The standard negotiator, they're reactive. They're focused on persuading, on what their counteroffer should be. But the elite negotiator is proactive. Their objective is to define the entire playing field. They're not asking, what's the next number? They're asking, who is setting the context here?
So, mastery negotiation. It isn't about learning how to resist an anchor. It's about shifting your entire focus from reacting inside the conversation to commanding the very architecture of the conversation. It's about setting the terms of reality before the numbers are even part of the discussion.
So, to wrap this up, let's turn the lens back on you. To really understand this force, you have to examine how it's affecting your own position, right now.
I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions about your most important negotiation. Number 1, in your current deal, who set the frame? Was it you, or are you just reacting to theirs? Number 2, what arbitrary number is your logic adjusting from instead of truly evaluating? And finally, number 3, how would your definition of a reasonable outcome change if that very first number had been completely different? Your answer reveals who truly controls the terrain.